Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to Improving Scottish Football. My name is Kieran Hennigan. I'm joined by coach, analyst, and regular contributor John Walker. John, how are you?
A bit more positive, to be honest, after getting a we'll call it a decent result against a good Portugal side just there. A pretty back to the walls performance in most parts, but yeah, very, very positive actually.
I know. Celebrating a 0-0 draw. Is there anything more? Is there anything more Scottish?
We are so back, Kieran. We are so back.
So we're obviously doing this live stream, but of course, if you are watching on catch up, you're very welcome along. Please do comment on the video, whether you're watching live or on catch up. We do read all the comments, and we love the interaction. So please do get involved. We're going to talk about the senior side, obviously, but we're also going to talk about the under-21s a little bit into this, because obviously they've had a bit of a disappointing time over in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan not being a good place for Scottish sides to go. Well, there you go. That's a bit of positivity right there. I mean, at least we're not losing 3-0 to Kazakhstan anymore, right?
Very true.
Well, let's get stuck into this game then. 0-0 to Portugal at home wasn't, it's obviously an okay result, and wasn't the worst performance. What did you make of the performance, John?
So it's the same thing that I've said a few times. The way we like to play is so insistent and not being broken through the middle. However, a lot of teams now prefer to go on the outside. Spain adapted this very recently, where they were constantly going to the wingers, constantly getting full-backs down the sides and getting crosses into the box. That was what Spain were doing high volume of. It's what Portugal did really well against us in the home game, and it's what they did really well against tonight. If you do that, what you need to have is people that defend the box perfectly for 94 or 95 minutes, which we've not had in recent games. However, John Souttar, and admittedly, here we go, is this where did I look to announce my apology to Grant Hanley?
Yeah.
John Souttar and Grant Hanley won every header that was there to be won in the box, won every tackle, blocked everything they could. So when you do that and backs to the walls, you need to be available to do everything correctly. Anthony Ralston had two brilliant headed clearances at the back post as well. The only slight blip I can think of was Andy Robertson trying to dummy it out the park when Cancelo kept it in. But apart from that, you need to defend your box perfectly, and we did. And then when we were breached, Craig Gordon had 2 or 3 world-class saves, which is just ridiculous for where he's been, even from the Finland send-off to now. Everyone at the back's pretty much had a perfect performance. It was very, very similar to those that managed to survive the Rangers UEFA Cup run in 2008 without ever a heart attack. The Fiorentina away game, which just felt like everything fell to the 2 centre-halves for us to clear.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't you call this a tactical masterclass by Steve Clarke? I mean, they were pummeling the box with crosses, and we were just for a lot of the game just heading it clear. I mean, it was kind of playing to our strength in that way, no?
Maybe, but then I look at Ronaldo's chance. Ronaldo should probably score his header midway through the second half on the penalty spot-ish. You've got Fernandez's chance right at the end that Craig Gordon saves. Those are 2 fairly good chances that I would expect Portugal to potentially take. There was a couple of Ronaldo snapshots on the edge of the box. Dealing with normal players, they're not chances. Dealing with Ronaldo, those are chances. So it is a good performance. It's a good tactical performance, but you are still relying, like I said, on the perfect defensive performance of your box, and then that slight bit of luck, which we got.
Yeah. So guys, please do get involved in the chat. What did you think of the performance? What did you make of the game? Let's see if I can pull up a little comment here. Matthew. Hello, Matthew. Yeah, best performance and result in quite a while. Nothing spectacular, but a noticeable improvement. I would go on to say that the Croatia game as well was a noticeable improvement. Obviously not the result, but in both games, there's been attacking intent, which we've been critical, obviously, of Scotland for a while, lacking that attacking intent. What has changed there? Was there a tactical shift, or is just there been more encouragement to actually go forward?
I think it's a case of we're playing against a really attacking side. Portugal and Croatia are quite happy to go 2+1 or man for man at the back. They're quite happy to take those risks when they're attacking, which then leaves us space to counter-attack, which you've seen with the Ralston cross at the end for McTominay. We're quite happy to play against teams like that and soak up pressure in the hope that when we do win it back, we've got a bit of quality and we can get up the park. And when we do get up the park, you get Andy Robertson and Ralston up supporting for crosses like we've seen for McTominay's chance. However, the critical part of me and the pessimist in me is always going, we know Andy Robertson has great delivery. We know Scott McTominay's a danger in the air. I know Ryan Gauld is good at creating little assists. Let's do more of it. Let's play in a way that you can do more of it. Maybe Portugal's not the right side, but Croatia and Poland, I think, are sides you can do that to. I don't think, despite Croatia's outstanding international record over the last 2 World Cups, I just don't think they're as good or as much better than us if you take like Modric and maybe Kovacevic out of the team. I think it's very samey, and I just think that that's the teams that we actually need to start pushing forward onto a bit more. This is a good performance. If this had been followed up with a draw in Croatia and beating Poland at home, it'd be a totally different mindset and we'd be looking at third place. And that's where I'm constantly going to go, because I deep down, I've been pretty consistent in the belief that this is a group of players that are a Nations League A side. They are a second tier national side in those types of qualifiers, and we should be competing against most of the teams at this level, barring the top 8.
So, sorry, you think the Scotland squad is good enough for League A
Yes,
in the Nations League? Okay. I mean, I think some of our players are. I mean, McTominay, Gilmore, obviously Robbo, mcginn, Christie, possibly, but there is such a lack of depth to the squad that suddenly when when a few players are missing, we are having to call in a lot of players who are, like Ralston, and looking down to the Championship, McLean, Hanley, etc. So I think there are some players that are definitely League A level, but I think it is quite worrying that there isn't that kind of strength and depth. And also, as we've touched on before, the amount of young players coming through as well, following on from these kind of more senior aging pros, is also obviously of quite significant concern.
That being said, though, I think if you're looking at our side compared to Croatia, for a long time, Borna Barisic was Croatia's backup left back for 5-6 years, and they were a team that got to third place in the World Cup. That was the level of depth that they had. They were very lucky that they managed to keep their pretty much core 11 consistently fit for all the international tournaments. We're in a situation where we go from Aaron Hickey to Nathan Patterson before we get to Anthony Ralston. So in those areas we've got depth. We already know the situation we've got at left back, and then you've got Josh Doig waiting in the wings of that team as well, and you've got Greg Taylor as a pretty admirable fourth choice in a squad at a left back. You then, as you said, you've got a plethora of midfielders. You've got 5 or 6 that are English Premier League quality. I do think we obviously lack it up front, but Shea Adams is scoring goals in Serie A, which not a lot of strikers at international football club countries can't say that. So I do think Shea Adams is one of these ones where if Shea Adams was playing for England with the service he would get there, Shea Adams would score a lot of goals for England at international football. He's playing in a Scotland side that doesn't suit him. The one bit of real quality, you're looking at the move down the line that gets clipped to the back post. He's not seen the ball for like 7-8 minutes by that point, and you're like, make a perfect decision.
Yeah.
These players make perfect decisions because they're touching the ball consistently. Vitinha has like a 97% passing completion because he sees the ball continually. Billy Gilmore sees it once every 4 or 5 minutes and they expect it to hold on to it, find the right man, compose himself. There's no trick to it. It's people that are comfortable and see more of the ball, get more comfort and grow into games. And I just think we don't help our real quality players by doing that.
Yeah. Although Gilmore, thankfully, is capable of doing that. I mean, what a legend that boy is. How many caps is he on just now? 20 something, maybe?
He must be into his 20s now, yeah. He's I mean, he has been the one, he was the one, and he'll continue to be the one as far as I'm concerned. He is, he just reminds me a little bits of N'Golo Kante, not quite as aggressive at winning the ball back, but he always seems to be where the ball lands all the time. A habit of just being within 5 yards constantly to put pressure on. I think every time I seen John Souttar and Grant Hanley got on the ball, it was him looking for the ball. I think Kenny McLean was good tonight as well. I think one thing I will put towards Kenny McLean is Kenny McLean never hides from the ball, ever. Kenny McLean looks for the ball off every single player. There was even a clip where Andy Robertson did a throw in the middle of the second half, and Kenny McLean is screaming for it to be thrown at him, and Andy Robertson's telling everyone to get up so he can throw it long. So Kenny McLean doesn't hide, and that's one of the things. That's what I like in a midfielder. I like midfielder that's willing to constantly look for the ball.
Yep. What did you think of Ben Doak's inclusion? That's been a pleasant surprise to see him actually getting through and in. Some trust being placed in our youth players.
That's something that I love, and I think that there's a fine line. So I was in the BBC podcast, and Tom English was saying that he felt all the comments over the Croatia game were a bit overhyped and a bit exaggerated how good the performance was or how effective he was. I've been inclined to agree. He's a very raw talent. I'll continue to say this one. He's very Theo Walcott when Theo Walcott burst onto the scene. There's a lot of running into players. There's a lot of misplaced passes. There's a lot of incomplete dribbles that go out the park. But there is a legitimate fear of people when he gets the ball and runs at them. You've seen Cancelo go to him with the touchline for that McTominay chance. And the minute Ben Doak got him squared up, Cancelo never went anywhere near him. He just backed off, and then Doak played it back to Robertson and put the cross in. Again, Doak's someone that the thing Theo Walcott had going for him with his development, he played at an Arsenal team where he's seen the ball constantly and in attacking areas. Same thing I'm going to say about Billy Gilmore as I'm going to say about Ben Doak. If he sees the ball once every 10, 15 minutes, and sometimes those are in his own half, which we've seen him give the ball away 3 or 4 times, none of us want Ben Doak touching the ball in our own half. We want Ben Doak the other way. We want Ben Doak in the final third. That's what Ben Doak's going to be built towards. He came through Celtic's academy. He's been in Liverpool's academy. He's at an attacking championship side with a pretty forward-thinking coach. Everything he's going to be pushed to do is about the attacking third and how he impacts games. In Scotland, he's going to have to learn to do a bit more and a bit more graft until such time as we have a different philosophy or a different style that would suit just creative types.
Yep. And Michael obviously saying about Gordon having a huge match. Yeah, Craig Gordon with that save at the end. Oh my word. I just thought it squirmed through his legs and it trickled over the line. I thought it was going to be one of those ones. But well done, Craig.
Mate, it's unbelievable. The leg break was horrendous enough. The leg break was horrendous enough to do anyone out of football, especially at the age he was. You add into that, he did get his farewell. He had a bit of a shambles in the Finland game. I would have said he was definitely at fault for the penalty. Looked a bit sloppy for their goal. But to just come back after a full pre-season and it just disposed Zander Clarke out the Hearts team, he just seems to be consistently getting better again. He seems to be back to almost perfect Craig Gordon again. That was what I seen loads of bits from him again today. I was so impressed, and I think that's things like those saves are just like the little cherry on top for performances like that.
Yep. Guys, get involved in the comments. We want this to be a relatively interactive live stream if we can. So drop us a note. Who do you think played well? What did you think of the setup? How did we play? Does it give you more optimism going forward? Anything you guys want to say in the comments, please do. Even if you're watching on a replay, we will read the comments. We're going to come onto the Scotland under-21s very shortly. Just one other thing that I want to mention, because we have given Steve Clarke a bit of criticism in the past. One thing we've talked about is the lack of subs and the ability to change in game. That was definitely a problem in Croatia before Croatia scored their winner. I mean, even the commentators were saying, "Oh, Scotland are looking very tired here," and then Croatia scored, and then we made our subs in, I think, the 77th minute in Croatia. That was the first subs. Tonight, the 66th minute. Would you believe, for our first 2 subs to come on, which was nice. Still behind Portugal, who brought on 3 subs at the 60th minute. But, signs of optimism, John.
Mate, well done, Kieran. Well done. That is what we call reaching, I think. For me, you hit the nail on the head. I don't want to be too downbeat because I do think this was a really good performance. But what you've called out is something that is very consistent throughout British football coaches, and it's a known issue. It was the same thing that was levied at Gareth Southgate, consistently waiting for opposition teams to make their changes before you decide if you can go and make yours, depending on what they're going to change. It's consistently reactive instead of proactive. And I would just like to see sometimes that bit of proactivity from our bench and from the ideas is how can we go win the game, not just like for like to make sure the energy levels are there and nobody's red zoning and nobody's struggling. It's just that little tweak of attitude for me.
Yep, 100%. So let's talk about the under-21s. There's some amazing talent in the under-21s. Lennon Miller being, what a goal he scored tonight. If you haven't seen that goal, go look it up. Absolute banger. And what a legend he is. I would love to see him in the national side, just promote him, especially now that obviously the under-21s can no longer qualify. Let's get him into the squad for the last couple of Nations League matches because, we have to start looking at guys like that and progressing them through.
I could not agree more, especially now that the under-21s qualifying tournament has been and gone. We will not be making a European Championships. Lennon Miller is 100% at the level and of the quality to play for Scotland. I have absolutely no doubts and no qualms. And for me, if you're looking at, again, despite what I think was a very good performance tonight, Kenny McLean, there's nothing new to learn about Kenny McLean. He's an aging centre midfielder that is a very good technical footballer, but Kenny McLean's days as a Scotland centre midfielder are over. People like Lennon Miller should be taking his place in the squad, and if so, it comes round to a time where you need to play him, you start him, and you just put him in the deep end, and you work from there. Well, the Ben Doak experiment has shown to work. Teams are afraid of him. He will consistently get better as he plays these types of level matches. Lennon Miller will be the same. Lennon Miller, you can see, is very comfortably the type of footballer that if you plop him in a better side, he'll get better. Put him in a better side than that, he'll get better again. He has no ceiling to where Lennon Miller can go. Lennon Miller will be a English Premier League footballer comfortably at the top six, at similar level of John McGinn. Absolutely no doubts about it. He has absolutely everything. And one of the things I probably noticed more so today than I had noticed, and it was something that Andy Halliday had said before, that he's actually a 6, he's not an 8. He's a sitting midfielder. He's very much a Rodri type, Paulinho type for Portugal tonight. He's actually a sitting midfielder that's very brave on the ball and good at breaking lines and good at getting forward passes. So the idea of him and Billy Gilmore in midfield for the next 10 to 15 years is just absolutely extraordinary for me.
Oh, don't, John. That's too exciting. What about Connor Barron? Michael saying he was, the best player in the Belgian game. In his perspective, you've had comments on Barron while he's been playing at Rangers. Brief thoughts on Connor Barron.
I would agree on the under-21 comment. I thought on Friday night, it maybe wasn't the best. I don't know if he was the best player. It's hard to judge because a lot of Scotland's work was without the ball. Him and Lyle Cameron were excellent. Lennon Miller was a bit quieter in that game. But I think in a game like that, it was very much a kind of backs to the walls. You weren't getting much out of it. But off the ball, Connor Barron works his bollocks off continually. Will always do that. That's his bread and butter. I think just in games like that, you see that he's actually got a little bit of quality when you're struggling to put his foot in the ball and try and build out a little bit, be braver. And that's what I continually see with the Scotland age groups in little snapshots. Even watching the Victory Shield, I think I talked about him a little bit. Nathan Meakin, who's at Celtic, I think, is 15. He looks like a very kind of Callum McGregor type centre midfielder. Very comfortable in that area. But again, even at the 15s, 16s level, we don't really play a style of football that gets these players lots of the ball. So I will just keep going back to that same thing. However, I do like that we have all these kind of brave footballers consistently kind of repeat pattern. Conor Barron. If Conor Barron's in around the Scotland squad, Scotland will be fine. I would never. Conor Barron needs to take a unprecedented hike in performance to be anywhere near the starting 11 for a Scotland squad, just because the people in his queue are just too good. Like Kenny McLean's an all-round better footballer than Conor Barron is just now, 100%. So you've got that in front of you. So if I'm saying Kenny McLean needs to move on, Conor Barron can be nowhere near that squad if everyone's fit and available, because you've got Lewis Ferguson to come back in. I think there's real case for Lennon Miller to be in the team next time. So you have kind of get that queue, but I do think the one thing Steve Clarke has been good at, and this is me going, I'll go on record here, Kieran, right? The one thing I've consistently liked about Steve Clarke is he's had Robbie and Ross McCrory up to the squad. He's had Lewis Ferrini up to the squad. He had Leon King up to the squad. He's had Conor Barron up to the squad. He had Matt Johnson, Josh Doig. He calls a lot of the other 21s up when there's space available in the camps, because he knows realistically they're going to be in the team eventually. So I do like that he has consistently kind of shown there's a pathway, even if that pathway hasn't resulted in minutes on the park.
Mm-hmm. So we're kind of halfway there. With that. Okay. Great. So we want to kind of stay on the under-21 subject, but very quickly, let's pick up Grant's comment here, who says he enjoyed hearing you on the BBC podcast. There we go. Bit of flattery will get you everywhere. When you are off air with the journos, before and after the recording, do you tell them to ask Steve Clarke the awkward questions, and what do they say? And this is obviously because there is a lot of softball questions and a lot of journos being scared to kind of ask some actual serious questions and try and hold them to account. So yeah, so what do they say off air? So
this is good, because you and I spoke about this. I think, was it the last time we did the podcast? Was it the last time?
It was live last time we did them live. Yeah. It was,
So the last live one we did, I had went on a bit of a rant saying that the journalist did not hold Steve Clarke to account, and commented on the fact that Chris McLaughlin got a bit of a shitty response from Steve Clarke when he asked him about the failure at the Euros and why he didn't make changes and why he brought certain players on when he did. And Steve Clarke gave him a very disrespectful answer. It was very kind of dismissive. Mm-hmm. I then said that I think this is a kind of pandemic of journalists being too scared to ask people questions. So a journalist who will remain nameless and will be will not be named on this got in touch with us and basically told us that it is kind of a blanket order, that if you get blacklisted and you're sent by BBC, PLZ, ITV, STV, whoever you're being sent by for Steve Clarke's media, same goes for Rangers and Celtic. Because you're in Scotland, if Steve Clarke has an issue with the BBC journalist, Steve Clarke has an issue with the BBC, and that person will not get rights and will not be sent to the next game. So everyone's kind of having to toe the line to ensure they keep their job and keep their media accreditation to go to these games and ask these questions. This doesn't happen in England because there's so many media sources and so many clubs that nobody can blanket it out, and because Sky are a sponsor of the league and pretty much run the league, and they pull all the strings financially, nobody can turn around and go, you're out of here, because they'll just go, no, we pay you, it's not the other way around. Whereas in Scotland, you need to play by Steve Clarke, Scotland, SFA, Rangers, Celtic's rules. Yeah. And that's how it works.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And it's one of the good things about us doing this podcast is, well, certainly for me, I don't work in football. And thank God I don't, because genuinely, if I was, working in the football media and everything, I wouldn't be able to, I would be blacklisted and stuff. And thankfully I've got nothing really to lose, because I'm not trying to operate professionally within the game. So I can be a bit more honest, shall we say, in having these kind of conversations. It's also worth flagging the Herald as well did a recent article last week, which we featured in, talking about some of the things that they're at least trying to start these kind of conversations about improving Scottish football. So it is slow and steady progress, but yeah, that's generally not great to hear about the whole kind of blacklisting thing, but not surprising. Let's get back onto the under-21s. Quick opinion on Dane Murray. Does Dane Murray play for the under-21s? Yeah.
Gets sent off tonight.
Oh, he got sent off. Okay, right. Okay, quick opinion on Dane Murray.
I think he's a good footballer. I think Dane Murray could be a good centre half. I think he's got a lot to learn, but he is very young as a centre half, so that's not surprising. I just think that there's a lot wrong with the Scotland Under 21 system and setup. There's a lot wrong with the academy set up in Scotland and how you get people prepared for first team football. I think Dane Murray's someone that can make the jump. I do think he's better than Stephen Welsh was when Stephen Welsh was getting game time for Celtic, and I do think he's got a higher ceiling than that. But he would need to break into a good Premier League side and hold that place down. I don't think he's going to get into Celtic's side, so I know he's on loan.
Although he did play. I think he did play some appearances in like the Champions League qualifiers when Postecoglou first came in, because there was about, I don't know, they were down to their like 6th or 7th choice defenders at that point. So I'm pretty sure he played against like Midtjylland and stuff. I think he was thrown in there. Did reasonably well. Well, you touched on the kind of the under 21 setup. So let's come on to like the big burning question is, what the hell is going on? That's the technical way of putting it. Yeah, what is going on with the under 21s?
So this is infuriating to me because it's something that I watch consistently. So I think I'd said a couple of times that I've kind of like launched my own football business idea as like a one-to-one technical analyst. So it's not doing one-to-one sessions. It's not going to do one-to-one coaching. It's literally looking at people's technical attributes during the football match. So it's nothing about the tactical. That's up to their coach and their manager and the staff around them. For me, the technical stuff is your body shape when you pass, your body shape when you press, how you go and tackle, how you jump into tackles, just little technical movements and what your body shape's like. And you've got Mullen at centre half, you've got Dane Murray and you've got Nielsen, who all have terrible body shape when they receive the ball and have even worse body shape when they're trying to break line passes. Break line passes requires you fully leaned over the ball, being able to punch it 20, 30 yards along the ground. It requires a specific skill set, a specific body shape. Every time we're making those passes, the shape's not on, the shape's all wrong. When we're trying to break lines, it's the same thing. We do not step towards the press. We take the ball and receive it towards the touchline, which shuts off half a pitch. And it's happening every game, which means to me categorically, if it's happening every game and the level that some of these footballers are playing at, Dane Murray came through Celtic's academy, nobody's shown them these clips and working with them. People are doing it on the training pitch only. We know now from the world that we've lived in, people under the age of 24, they learn auditorily, visually, and kinesthetically. They're getting the kinesthetic piece, they're getting the physical piece, no bother. They're doing it on the pitch. Other players will learn visually. These clips needs to be shown to players. It's not happening. I know it's not happening. I talk to Premier League footballers in Scotland. I know clubs do not do this for a fact. There's a big hole in Scottish football. And see if we are willing to do something about this, like with the under-21s, if you had someone that was specifically working on only technical attributes of all the people within the Scotland squad, I believe you would see improvements on just the technical side alone, which would then work into the tactical side. I've absolutely no doubt about that. So that's a starting point of building out, because if I'm telling you we need to play out for the back, you need people that know all the right technical pieces to work on that. As for Scott Gemmell in the under-21s, Scott Gemmell is the epitome of your yes man who doesn't ask for too much money, who doesn't raise his voice in the SFA and keeps his job despite being one of the worst coaches that has ever had that role, especially for the length of time he's had it. He will never live down leaving Billy Gilmore on the bench for a qualifier. He will never live that down. It's embarrassing. He does not know how to use the players at his disposal. He has a worse squad now, I agree with that. The level under 21s has reduced since 3-4 years ago. It was much higher 3-4 years ago. But even then, he was miles off it. He was bypassing Billy Gilmore in games he played. He was playing Nathan Patterson right wing. He was playing 4 fullbacks in games. It's unbelievable. And it can only be because he keeps his mouth shut and doesn't ask for a lot of money.
Yeah. 8 years he's been in. So September 2016. My question is, how is that? I think we know the answer anyway, but I'm going to ask it. How is his performance analysed? Like, do the SFA do any sort of analysis or benchmarking or KPIs and think, do you know what? Maybe this might not be the best guy for the role. I mean, if they actually cared about the under 21s, surely you would search the market, see if there's a better candidate, especially when, I mean, there's just been so many kind of mistakes made along the way, and it's now 1996 since the under 21s qualified for a major tournament.
So here's how I would sell it. Here's how Scott Gemmell sells it, and here's how the SFAL sells Scott Gemmell staying there. They will rhyme off the amount of under 21s that he's had who have now got international caps. However, loads of bad nations get under 21s coming through. Scotland, through their worst times under Betty Vokes, got under 21s through the national side. It's a standard process because clubs work on them and club teams improve them and get them to a point. Lewis Ferguson isn't a Scottish international because Scott Gemmell had him in the under 21s. Lewis Ferguson is a Scottish international because him and his agent realised to get him to Bologna to work under Thiago Motta was the way that he was going to improve. But that's how Scott Gemmell will sell it. That's how the SFA will sell it. It's been a hugely successful time. There's been a massive rise in under 21 players going into the national side, and that national side has actually had success as a result of that. For me, it should only ever be based on making international tournaments, because the idea for Scotland is to make international tournaments. So you need to make under 21 players get to tournaments so that when they get to the top side, they're making tournaments. It's pretty common sense to me. If you're not doing that on a consistent basis, you're failing. Scott Gemmell is a failure as a Scotland under 21 manager. Absolute failure. There's no other way around it. You've had 8 years and you've qualified for 0 tournaments. You're out of a job. It's unbelievable that he's anywhere near a job. Anywhere near a job. That result tonight, when you and I were talking, that result tonight was almost predictable. You've got players like Lewis Farini, who were called into the squad knowing that this was the last squad that he'd have been allowed to play in because he's now 22. And he was brought on as a late sub against Belgium when I cannot believe he didn't start. He's been playing well for Stockport. And then decides not to even go on a plane because he's like, why would I bother? Like, I've got a club team to go back to and this will be my last cap. Why would I bother going to Kazakhstan and missing out on 3 days training when I've had all those injury problems? That's what the manager's creating. And that to me is just horrendous.
Yeah. I don't really know where to start with this. The under 21s are being treated by keeping Scott Gemmell on, or at least not publicly saying anything or giving any real justification as to why he should be kept on. They're treating the under 21s as a kind of like, they're there in the background. They'll be fine. It's only the under 21s. That age group is so important, not only for their development, not only for, creating that pathway into the first team, but we are at a really interesting time whereby a lot of young players are dual nationals, and they are eligible for England and they are eligible for Scotland. And we've got the opportunity, if we have the right setup and if we have a good team playing in a good way, we have the opportunity to attract players who might be inclined to go with England to actually come and switch allegiances to Scotland, or at least keep their allegiances to Scotland. But if the under 21 setup is absolute rubbish and they're playing a shit style of football and everything else that goes alongside it, then we are going to lose any sort of eligible talent to England, to other nations. And we are not in a strong position where we can really afford that to happen. We need to be attracting these young players from an early age when so many of them are eligible for both nations. We need to be getting these young players passionate about playing for Scotland, excited to play for Scotland. And the under 21s is so important with that aspect as well.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it even goes lower than that. I think something that England have done, and it's no coincidence, since 2017, 2016, 2015, when they built St George's Park, England had said that their ambition was to win tournaments at all age groups, and they believed that would bleed into the national side. 2017, they won the under-17s World Cup. I know it's not like a highly remarked one. It's not the under-20s. You know, it's nothing. It's not quite as glamorous. But players in that scored in that final. Morgan's Gibb White is a £50 million footballer now. Phil Foden plays with the best team in world football just now, I would say. Mark Gahey, centre-half for England just now. That they were doing that. They recognised that that was how you actually built a pathway and built winners. Since that point, they were on and won the under-21 European Championships with players like Anthony Gordon playing. Since then, they've made 2 European Championship finals with the men's national side. These are not accidents. If your underage groups perform well, the winner of the Euros this year, Spanish coach, had success at the under-21s with Spain. If you create success at your underage groups and have, by the way, a consistent style of play the whole way through, you will benefit the end goal. You will create that. The problem is, I do not believe we have any coaches, I mean any, that I see that have a dedicated style of play that really coach it properly. Because I will say this till I'm blue in the face, I go watch East Kilbride quite a lot. Cy Ferry and Mick Kennedy are very clear with lower league players how they want to play, and you can identify how they play and where they're moving, how the rotations work. Scotland have the JD Performance School. They have a lot of under-16s that are there full-time. I do not see the same patterns. I see full-backs going down the line to a squared-on winger, and it just goes out of play. I don't see how the passes come into the middle of the park and you make the best use of, for example, a Nathan Meakin, who looks like a very good footballer in centre midfield. You do not get the supply to Kadamatari up front, who's at Sheffield United. His dad was a Sheffield Wednesday player back in the day. You do not get the supply to him, so I don't know if he's a good striker or not. Similar to the same with Che Adams. It's the same problems at our underage groups that I see in our men's national side. We do not get our midfielders on the ball anywhere near enough, and those are the talented players. We cannot tell if we've got good strikers because we don't give them enough supply. And we really seem to have this insistence, this obsession with a low block and defending our box as if that's all we know how to do, or that's all we're ever been trained to do, when we have all of these good young footballers across all the age groups that we're not making a use of because we will not change the style. I think somebody had asked the question around if we have coaches. See if you put me in it, technical director of the SFA, and I'm going to pretend it's this easy. I'm going to pretend for a minute it's this easy. I go to Reece McCabe first and go, what would it take for you to take over the Scotland under-21 job? Name your price. Are you still wanting to do a managerial role? Are you still wanting to play club football? What's your deal? Then I'm going for the 19. I think the 19s have appointed well with Neil McFarlane and Chris Burke. I think that's a good pairing. I would have liked to see Kevin Thompson involved in one of those age groups. I would then be going to the 17s and doing something similar, identifying a coach that I believe would play the same way, that you would then insist on a style of play. The men's national side can disappear and do whatever it's doing until such time as when a replacement comes out. You do not have the power to be like, we need to change that. However, the under-21s has that position. The under-16s wasn't good enough. The under-19s are slightly improving, but again, they failed to make the competition. That's why they get rid of Billy Stark. But we're again in a situation whereby Billy Stark was in charge of the under-19s up until 3 months ago. It's ludicrous that we just treat this like, is there an SFA employee that we need to keep employed, that we can just move in these roles so we don't have to do a redundancy payment, or we don't have to restructure it and we can just keep them in the organisation? It's honestly pathetic for the money they charge coaches like me to go on coaching courses and CPDs to keep our coaching badges when we know how much money there is kicking about, and you've got the money to pay chief execs 400 grand a year to do their job. Stuff like that are infuriating when you could go and spend that money and stretch it out and get good coaches that would be a consistent style of play. But I would have a technical director that was really insistent on what we wanted as Scottish football. And I believe that although there's still people that I think tonight was a very good performance, but it's not what I want to watch. It's not. I want to see more of the attacking intent. I want to figure out how we get to a position where Croatia were playing a World Cup semi-final into a final against France. I want to figure out how we get Billy Gilmore for being good at Scotland to Billy Gilmore that could emulate or get close to a Luka Modric type player. He's not going to do that in the way that we play football at Scotland. Never.
Yep. We're going to, I think, probably come back onto the national side, kind of to round us off a little bit. I mean, that was a very good spell there on the under-21s. Just before we come off the under-21s, what do you think are the prospects of Scott Gemmell potentially losing his job or someone else being brought in?
If Scott Gemmell doesn't lose his job, people need to start holding that accountable, because that's embarrassing. There's a lot of talk about Steve Clarke and stuff like that about his job. Scott Gemmell's job is untenable. You cannot go to Kazakhstan and lose 3-2. You cannot have the performances that we had. Scott Gemmell has won 6 games in his last 20 competitive matches. 2 of them were against Malta and 2 of them were at home to Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Okay. Yeah. The question is who is holding them to account, because also there doesn't seem to be a lot of focus on the under-21s in the mainstream media. So I don't really know who that person is going to be apart from you, John.
I don't want to do it because see these guys I'm shouting about and moaning about, I need them to mark my A license soon. I need them to sign off on my assessment.
Oh, you've made a big boo-boo here. Okay, right. Let's come back on to the main Scotland match for some final thoughts. If you are watching this live, please do comment. Let us know any final thoughts. If you're watching this on catch up, please do comment. We do read all the comments. It's also worth noting that the podcast is going to be back more regularly very soon with John as a regular contributor. So really excited about that. And we're going to have lots of great guests along the way, delving into all sorts of different topics, from league reconstruction to youth development, to women's football, to grassroots football. Please do make sure you're subscribed to the pod, whether you're on YouTube. It's available on all podcast platforms. I don't want to have to do the whole preachy stuff, but you know what it's like. So like, share, subscribe, etc. And leave a review as well. That would be hugely appreciated. So some final thoughts on the match tonight and where we are going. We've got kind of two Nations League matches left, which is at home to Croatia, then away to Poland. Is that the order that they fall?
That's correct.
What do we need to see from those matches to give you room for optimism? How are you feeling about those 2 upcoming matches?
I would be hopeful that we could get 2 wins out of those matches. I don't think I've seen anything other than our approach, to be honest, of letting Croatia dominate the game. And the first half against Poland was a disaster. The second half against Poland and large spells of the Croatia game, we were very much in control of the game. I didn't feel that there was really any danger. That they aren't a team like a Portugal that can turn it on or have like a pure informed world-class winger that can take people on. I think both those teams can be got at. So I would be saying that if we want to look back on this and feel it was successful and feel that at the level that I believe our players are at, we should be going and beating both them teams. I really mean that. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be getting 6 points, and that should be the remit. It shouldn't be any more of this, a draw at home to Croatia is good, look at their past record. They've got a 39-year-old midfielder that's still getting lauded. I'm not saying like look at
I mean, he is good.
Yeah, but he's not getting a game for Real Madrid just now. He's coming on at the end of games because realistically his legs are going. Like, he is starting to slow down a little bit. He's still better than what we have. However, I think if you get more people around him, you could really exploit. There's a lot of our counter-attacks against Croatia, for example, felt like when he lost the ball in the middle of the park, he could not recover. So it's about trying to impose our technical ability and our actual footballing ability and possession with the ball, and how we could actually dominate games and get at teams. So yeah, I think realistically Croatia and Poland have to be 2 wins. There's nothing less.
And what about the kind of setup? Would you like to see, I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark here, Ryan Gold getting a start? I mean, I would love to see Ryan Gold get a start. He's looked really bright coming on. And if that's the case, I'm assuming, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but, you know, I love your content, John. Christie dropping into the 6, which is where he plays his club football. And then Ryan Gold, stepping up to play on in one of the wide positions.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't mind that. I think Ryan Gauld, although I've previously said I don't like attacking mids necessarily getting pushed out to a natural wide area, Ryan Gauld drifts out there naturally for Vancouver and has always done that in his career. Ryan Gould's quite comfortable going into those areas. I would love to see him start a game. I think there's little bits of his quality. I think the pass to Adams on Saturday, his pass for Morgan today when he kind of took it on the chest under a bit of pressure, turned, and then that got Ralston down the line that almost got a goal. He's getting little bits of games and he seems to always be involved in something attacking that's positive, and he's only played what minutes have counted up to just under a half of football for Scotland. He needs to be given a game. Lennon Miller to come into the squad needs to get some game time. Again, I'll repeat, I think Kenny McLean was excellent tonight, but there's nothing new to learn from Kenny McLean in international football. You'd be keeping Kenny McLean in that squad just because he's trusted. It's time for somebody like Lennon Miller to come in and have a look. For me, it's goals as well, creating more chances so that we're not pointing to one or two half chances or one or two chances that we got in the game. So yeah, that should be on his farewell flag as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he. I mean, what an image. I mean, Kenny McLean will always have Norway away, and as you say, he does. He does give his all, and all these players. Like, if ever we're kind of critical of players, we're not really being critical of them because they're playing as best as they can be. It's it's just what the responsibility lies with the selection and the strength and depth, etc. So, yeah, I want to see some young players getting that move up to the some other players from the under-21 getting the step up to the main side. Cool. Before we round off, John, is there anything else you want to kind of chat about?
Just one final thing, and it depends on him being fit and having played any club games or being available. Kieran Tierney. So I have said this, and I don't think I've ever had the chance to really have this in place. I've said pretty consistently that I feel in a back four, Scotland's best two centre-halves to play football in a kind of forward-thinking way are actually John Souttar and Kieran Tierney. I've felt this way for about 4 years. It's just been getting the two of them lined up. Kieran Tierney's only time that he's played in a back four for Scotland at left centre-half was against Holland up at Pittodrie in 2018, and he was man of the match in that game. He's very good defensively. He's very good in the air. He gives you that kind of comfort. I know Steve Clarke loves him in that back three, but I still think he could do the exact same job at left centre-half in a back four. I think if we would ever want to try and be a bit more dominant in possession, John Souttar, we've seen a few times today, is very good at driving out with the ball. Kieran Tierney does that so naturally. You would have a very different aspect of both sides of the team. I feel that Grant Hanley can only go narrow to a left back behind him, or he goes back to the centre-half. I feel like if you had Kieran Tierney in that back four, just even for a game, even for a half, even for the last 30 minutes, I think you would see a lot more natural, kind of left-sided, right-sided people who matched up what we were trying to do and are willing. They play for possession-based teams, both of them. They're willing to play those difficult passes and actually try different things. I think those two are naturally kind of on the same side as each other.
Interesting. Okay. Kieran Tierney is 5'10". Is that an issue?
No. Lautaro Martinez, not Lautaro Martinez, Man United's Martinez, I cannot remember his first name right this second, is what, 5'7"?
Lisandro. Yeah.
5'7", 5'8", and he's a centre-half that's won the World Cup. I think sometimes it doesn't matter. But Kieran Tierney's the one thing with Kieran Tierney is he's always been really good in the air. He's always been really solid in the air. I've never had that issue, and he is very, very big. Oof. See, we could we could do a different comparison of when we beat Austria to where Austria are now, with the same squad from where we were at the time that we beat them, and they changed their manager and they appointed correctly with a philosophy. And now Norway are pumping teams and getting into the last 16, the last 8 of tournaments. We could do that all day and we could look at those comparisons. But Norway are a perfect example as to what I would like. I seen a coaching voice presentation with Ralph Rangnick earlier today, where he went into detail as to why he believes in his philosophy and high pressing and turning over the ball and attacking in numbers aggressively and keeping control of the ball. And you're just going I was thinking to myself, does Steve Clarke not watch any of these things and go like, yeah, this guy's right? Like this guy's beating teams 5-1. There must be something behind that. And I hadn't seen that result, so that's mental.
Yeah. Yeah. Ralph Rangnick is a fantastic coach. It just goes to show that Man United are the root of a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Right. I think that will do us then for this live stream. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. That was a lot of fun. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be back with a lot more content in the coming months, because goodness knows we need to improve Scottish football. So please join us on the rest of the journey for the rest of the year and into next. But it's a big thanks from me and a big thank you to John.
See you later.